The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Military, there's an executive order returning unvaccinated soldiers who refuse to get the COVID shot to their jobs. Things are moving slowly and such, but here we had the Secretary of the Navy issuing an official apology to warriors of conscience who were unjustly removed from service by the unlawful COVID-19 vaccine mandate.
To the sailors and Marines who were wrongfully discharged during COVID, we failed you. We will never allow this to happen again, not on my watch. We are ready for you to come back, and we want to correct your records. You are warriors of conscience, and we need people like you back in the force to accomplish peace through strength. We're righting this wrong, and it starts with this formal letter of apology.
It is good to see all of this moving forward, not nearly fast enough for all of us who were fired.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members by September 15th, and that came as a direct request from President Biden.
And I'm being told you're getting dishonorably discharged.
And if you get dishonorable, you lose everything. You can't get certain jobs as a civilian. It follows you for life.
Well, you're the only person in our whole organization, our whole unit, in our whole squadron.
From the time that the mandate started to the time that the mandate ended, 1,000 service members took their life. That's like 2 infantry battalions worth of individuals who are gone.
Good morning, America. Good morning, world. Good morning, CHD. Welcome once again. My name is Michael Kane. I am the Director of Advocacy here at Children's Health Defense. And today we have an update on what is happening with military reinstatement. We have my go-to guy for all military stuff, Davis Younts, former JAG attorney in the Air Force who had to fight his own battle over his religious exemption to the COVID shot, and then screens off February with Miriam Eckenfeld, Diego Hidalgo, and Pandava Dasa talking about the harms of electromagnetic radiation. Stick around. This is going to be a good one as usual. Before I get Davis on to get an update from him and his expert analysis on this, we have some news breaking just last night. The Undersecretary of War just put out a tweet giving us some numbers. Update number 1, reinstatements. The Department of War is making steady progress on reinstatements while we are making adjustments in stride. This is where reinstatements stand. Of the 8,700 warriors involuntarily discharged under the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, 602 are currently expressing interest in reinstatement. 104 have been reinstated across the service, and 115 are currently going through the process. Very interesting. Some low numbers there, actually, but there's also, you can imagine how many people just don't want to come back, don't want to face the potential of the humiliation again, rebuilding their lives. I was a teacher fired over the COVID shot mandate here in New York City, and I know all too well about this. We're going to get Davis's input on this as well, too. Just a week or so ago, we had this tweet that came out from Kevin Boren, which stated it's go time. We had a monumental week. I believe that was last week, Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, U.S. Army COVID Reinstatement and Reconciliation Task Force became fully operational for the U.S. Army. We're going to get Davis's input on that, exactly what that means, who does that benefit, who does it not benefit. And this article that Davis just sent over to me from Stars and Stripes, Air Force General to retire after service overturns ruling by COVID review board clearing him of misconduct. This actually sounds very similar to what Davis Younts had gone through, being very close to retirement. This vaccine mandate ends up hitting you. What happens there? So many teachers, cops, firefighters had this happen in New York City and across the country. We're going to get Davis on in a second, but first we got a couple of other news headlines. In New York, rally at the Capitol in Albany, March 24th. 2026, Mary Holland, Tony Lyons, Sujata Gibson, John Gilmore, Attorney Jimmy Wagner, myself, and many, many more. We need everybody to come there, but we are going to be focusing on the vaccine injured. Stories of those who have been injured by vaccines, stories by those whose family members have been killed from vaccination. But we need fired unvaccinated workers there. We need medical freedom fighters. We need everybody who cares about medical freedom. So mark your calendar, March 24th. If you're in New York or the Northeast, it's very important for you to pay attention to this and try to get to it. This is kind of cool. Just this weekend, I was lucky enough to be honored at the Donald J. Trump Republican Club in Brooklyn, New York. There's a picture with me with Lord Jamar from Brad Nubian. Unbelievable. I met a hip hop star from my youth who lives in Brooklyn himself at a Donald J. Trump Republican Club meeting. It was really wild. There is Rachel Maniscalco, another fire teacher who's been battling for a long time. Tremel Thompson, the vice president of Local 100. A lot of great people. John Gilmore was there. Curtis Sliwa, who ran for mayor in New York City. There were so many wonderful people there. Children's Health Defense does not support nor oppose any political party or any political candidate, but we do appreciate and support all those who support medical freedom. And the Donald J. Trump Republican Club in Brooklyn is the only political club, I think, in all of New York State founded by fired unvaccinated workers. So a shout out to them, and I appreciate them honoring me and the work that I have done. That's fantastic. In New Jersey, the religious exemption is in the crosshairs for kids to attend school. This is a great Substack from Ann Rosen, a good friend of Children's Health Defense. And what she caught is that the New Jersey chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics was praising the great work of the great state of California for all the infringement on your personal freedoms in that state. Let's play this audio clip of the AAP in their own words in New Jersey. Let's roll that.
You know, this is what we need to really address. California did a great job by removing a lot of the philosophical exemptions. Really, there are multiple data streams, which we could certainly talk about, that if you increase the barriers or the burden of getting an exemption, you will increase vaccination rates. And that's something that I think as a nation and as a state, we're going to have to start talking about.
There you go. So if you increase the burden of your ability to access your constitutionally guaranteed rights, the rights that have been endowed to all of us from our Creator, more people get vaccinated. Oh, this is wonderful. This is just wonderful advice. But we see very, very clearly what's happening, the role that the AAP is taking on a draconian stance on vaccination compared to what's currently in the federal health agencies under Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And of course, there's the lawsuits. AAP is suing Health and Human Services. Children's Health Defense is suing AAP in a RICO lawsuit. Get your popcorn, a lot going on here. A lot's going to continue to happen here. Some good news. In Idaho, Idaho passed the first Medical Freedom Act banning almost all mandates. Well, now we have Representative Beiswanger, who's introducing the Medical Freedom Expansion Act. So this is to basically wipe out every last mandate that is in the state of Idaho. One of those, for example, includes vaccine mandates for children to attend school. Now, in Idaho, you simply can write on a napkin, "No vaccines for my kid," and send it in. That's how easy it is to access your constitutional rights there. But they don't even want that. They're going to have that completely stricken as well, too. There is now an MFA, Medical Freedom Act, coalition of about 16 groups. Children's Health Defense is a part of it, stands for Health Freedom Defense Fund are leading it. Just found out 5 Medical Freedom Acts have gotten bill numbers all throughout the state, which is quite impressive to happen in just a couple of months. So we're going to keep updating you on that. That is a truly remarkable and important event. The last piece of news we have, the director of NIH, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, had this to say about the WHO, the worldwide public health establishment that pushed lockdowns on the world in the name of science is unrepentant. I am glad that the U.S. has left the WHO. I hope someday it repents and reforms, but today is not that day. He was defending President Trump's decision to remove us from the World Health Organization, something I completely and wholeheartedly agree with. I will not be holding my breath for the WHO to repent for what they did during COVID and otherwise. And now with that, it is my honor and my pleasure to bring in my guest today, former JAG attorney with the Air Force, Davis Younts. Davis, thank you so much for joining us here on CHD TV.
Always an honor, my friend.
So I really want to get your take on this. We opened up with a number of different pieces of news. The Navy issuing a formal written apology to those who were done unjustly by the COVID vaccine mandate. The Reinstatement and Reconciliation Commission for the Army is full go, full speed ahead. What's going on with the Air Force, and what does this mean? It almost seems like we're getting pieces, but maybe I think you even said to me the Air Force seems to be falling behind here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The work that's being done by the Army, they're leading the way on this. They've done a great job. They've got a great group of people together. And sometimes people say personnel is policy. That's a huge part of this with the Army. They've done a great job with that. The Navy has taken this great step. Truly grateful for what they're doing, what they're talking about. The apology that was issued, that's a great first step. The Air Force has not gotten anything like that done yet. The Air Force is way behind the other services on that. And so that's why you see these low numbers. And the one thing I just keep reminding everyone of whenever anyone will listen is this effort towards reinstatement is important. But what we're still missing is an acknowledgement of what happened to those people who weren't kicked out. Because we have to look at this and remember that thousands and thousands of people like me, were only able to stay in, get to a retirement, or otherwise continue their service because of injunctions in federal court, because it was so blatantly obvious what the Biden administration was doing and how this was illegal. So there's this whole issue of restoration. There's people that are still serving. There's people that have been devastated by this. Their career is 2, 3, 4 years behind their peers, and they're still being forced out by other means administratively because of what happened during COVID. So this idea that we're working to reinstate 8,700, that we're offering opportunities to come back in service, that's still only a small piece of what we need to see in order for there to be true restoration.
No, that's a really good point. People whose careers past were completely ruined, people who now are not eligible for the next promotion in the cycle that normally they would have, maybe, like you said, even been 2 or 3 years ahead of that. Before we get into talking about that, I want to talk a little bit about these numbers from the Undersecretary of War that just came out. So this tweet just came out last night. 8,700 people are eligible for reinstatement. So far, there's only been 100 or so that have been reinstated, with over 600 interested in doing it. Give us your perspective on that. Those numbers do seem kind of low. What do you think about that?
So I think there's a couple of issues with it, and there's different ways to look at it. One thing you could say is these are people who we have to remember, we have to go back. We can't forget. I mean, some of these are veterans that ended up being homeless. These were people that were, cadets at the Coast Guard Academy that were locked out of their rooms unexpectedly with less than 24 hours notice. So when we look at the devastation that was caused by this policy on this 8,700 people, they either still do not have trust in the system. They don't have any desire to subject themselves or their families to what happened to them during COVID, or quite frankly, they have moved on. They have gotten other jobs. They've moved on with their lives. And this is, to come back in, to have a service commitment that goes beyond the current administration, that goes beyond potentially the term of service of, the Secretary Kennedy, there's just fear. There's fear that they're going to be back in the same position in 2 to 4 years. And so there's just a huge lack of trust in the system, and they've moved on. But again, the devastation that was felt by so many in the military is not easily forgotten by these same people. So I am not surprised by these low numbers. And again, part of it is I truly believe these numbers reflect the fact that they don't fully trust the system until it looks to restore other people as well. And I mean, an example of that is two very dear friends and clients of mine are two former Navy SEALs. And I say former because of the injunction, they stayed in, they were able to continue to serve, they were able to deploy, they were able to do their job. But the moment their service commitment ended and they could get out, just in the last month, two of them experienced war fighters, stellar careers, the kind of people we need to protect our country, got out as soon as they possibly could because their careers were sidelined, essentially putting them 4 years behind their peers because of what happened during COVID. And they don't trust the system enough to stay in, even when they are the best of the best, tip of the spear. So these numbers reflect, yes, we're seeing an effort, we're seeing apologies, we're seeing the Secretary of War declare this was unlawful and illegal, but there's still a lack of trust if we don't continue to work towards full restoration for these guys.
That is so incredibly well said. When you and I first met, and I had you on years ago on the show, you were defending and representing an elite diving group that needed to be on hours' notice to go throughout the world wherever there was an emergency. There was a very embarrassing situation for Joe Biden, President Joe Biden at the time that happened, where some of your clients were rescuing heroes during a hurricane, and Joe Biden's on the phone with them. Is there anything I could do for you? And actually, yeah, how about you don't fire me? How about you don't fire my friends? We have religious exemptions that are up. Readiness was a big topic we talked about at that time, that President Biden was directly hurting the readiness of the U.S. military. You proved that to me in spades. There was no question. It was actually a little shocking to me. What do you think about readiness today? What you're speaking about, what you just talked about, some of the best former Navy SEALs jumping ship right when they hit their retirement date. What do you think this has done? How has this impacted readiness? Have we improved on readiness, or has the damage been done? Is this like a multi-year, multi-generational problem for military readiness?
Well, it still remains a huge problem for military readiness. And again, we're looking at a scenario where this was illegal, this was unlawful, but you still have a vast bureaucracy in the military, both on the civilian and the uniform side, that don't want to recognize it. I was in Utah 2 weeks ago defending a COVID objector, and I had a 2-star general on the stand in this board who didn't want to admit that the Secretary of War had declared this unlawful and illegal. He didn't want to admit that under oath. He didn't even want to talk about the video and seeing the video. So you still see that resistance, and that continues to have an impact on readiness. If the position of the Secretary of War is that this was unlawful and illegal, if you have the, hung cow talking about the issuing an apology, we have to be able to recognize what we did was wrong. We have to be able to learn from it and move forward. It was a violation of federal law. It was a violation of the Constitution. It was a violation of human rights. It was a violation of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It was a violation of 10 U.S.C. 1107A, which prohibits experimental or emergency use mandates on military members. It's not hard. Courts have seen it. Even reluctant courts have seen this. So we still have a deficit, a moral deficit of recognizing this and being willing to accept that what we did was wrong. And until we do that, we're going to continue to lose good people. And we really, just like you saw in teachers' unions and across school districts, we had a purge of people of conscience, of people who are willing to ask questions and stand up for the truth. And that creates a moral injury. It's going to take time to heal. I always learn something shocking from you. A 2-star general saying essentially, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see that video. I don't want to comment on. I mean, what do you think Secretary Hegseth, what do you think Donald Trump would think of this, and think of this individual serving, who would have the nerve, I'm presuming, under oath, to do that? That's
that takes some real nerve. In terms of how the military works and the way the importance of following orders and the importance of understanding what your superiors are doing. I'm a little shocked that a general would be willing to put themselves on the line there. But then again, maybe they're playing the long game too, right? Maybe they're thinking, I just need to wait this out. The politics takes over and becomes more important than the morality and more important than the legality. It's pretty shocking to me. Any comments you have?
No, and I would just say, listen, these are some of these same people are people that were willing to set aside their oath to the Constitution, set aside their conscience, and go along with discriminating against people to save their pension. So am I really shocked that now they are playing the political game? They're playing the long game. They're saying, well, I don't know if the guidance is clear, or I haven't seen written guidance yet, or I don't know how that applies, or I don't know what we're supposed to do with that, or I thought the order was lawful at the time. It's all part of that game, and really they are trying to preserve, and they're hoping they can wait out the current administration and then just continue to serve like good bureaucrats. And we have them in the military. The military is rife with good bureaucrats. That's a problem we see in many of our institutions, but the military is not immune.
You had mentioned Secretary Kennedy in this as well too. I was a little surprised, saying that you had said that some of these soldiers of conscience don't want to come back or are leaving as soon as they can because they're worried about another administration coming in or Secretary Kennedy leaving. I thought you were going to say Secretary Hegseth, actually. It surprised me a little bit. So my assumption is that these soldiers of conscience are really not emboldened, but really empowered, or there's sort of a sigh of relief that Secretary Kennedy is where he is, clearly recognizing what conscience is, clearly recognizing the importance of religious exemption. Talk a little bit about that. Am I correct about that? Has Secretary Kennedy's presence in the federal government had an impact on your clients and those that are like you and me?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a question of, it isn't even political as much as it is a question of acknowledging that the Trump administration is willing to listen to voices for freedom, willing to listen to someone who's willing to actually take a hard look at the science, stand up to pharmaceutical companies, stand up to the medical bureaucracy, and actually do the right thing and advocate for the right thing, regardless of personal consequences, which is something that, Secretary Kennedy has done throughout his career. And so again, set politics aside and just recognize the fact that many, many military members see him as someone who is willing to take a moral stand, regardless of personal consequences or professional consequences. And that's the kind of leadership they admire. And again, they have that level of admiration for Secretary Hegseth as well, and others, men like Hung Kao, men like Matt Lohmeyer on the Air Force side. But it sends a signal. There's signals that the Trump administration can send, and sticking with Secretary Kennedy, having him in that position, sends a strong signal that there is at least those in the administration that are willing to advocate for medical freedom, bodily autonomy, and basic human rights.
That's fantastic. You sent me a headline that was in Stars and Stripes that actually opened with in the news segment. Lou, if we could just put that up there. We had, I believe it was an individual in the Air Force who was close to retirement that ran into the same issue that you did. Here it is. Air Force general to retire after service overturns ruling by COVID review board, clearing him of misconduct. So refusing the COVID shot was viewed as misconduct. They actually were willing to say that. Talk to us a little bit about this individual.
Yeah, so this is actually a bad news story, and part of the reason why the Air Force is so behind. General Sage, this is fascinating. General Sage it got the shot himself, but then when he was put into a leadership position, he took steps to try to protect people. He took steps to try to get accommodations approved. Once he understood what was going on with this, he was one of the most senior Air Force leaders, one of the most senior people in the military to ask questions about masking, to actually make sure that people, on his military installation, you had people being put in what felt like a prison camp behind concertina wire if they weren't tested COVID or if they were seeking an accommodation or anything else. So all he did himself was ask questions about policy and advocate for wise policy. And what happened in his case, he was able to was able to retire, but he was actually slotted for promotion to 2-star general. The Biden administration took it away via autopen because of his objections to COVID policy. And what happened, and this is my disappointment with the Air Force right now and why his story is so important. What actually happened is he went to the Board of Corrections for military review. The Air Force Board of Corrections for military review looked at his case and said, hey, the prosecution and persecution he faced from the Air Force was the result of his stand against COVID policy. That's what they said in writing. And he won on a 2-to-1 vote. They said, restore his promotion, restore his back pay, clear his name. And it was actually a bureaucrat working in the Secretary of the Air Force's office, one of the undersecretaries, that overturned that decision of the Board of Corrections. So this is an example of the moral injury. This is an example of a bureaucrat overturning a positive outcome from someone who was seeking to have their career restored because it was devastated by their objection to just trying to protect other people. Again, General Sage was someone who very early on didn't ask questions, had not been a part of the medical freedom movement at all, had no idea what was going on with vaccines, took the shot, did his job. And then as things started coming out, as people started being hurt by this, he asked questions. And simply because he was in that kind of a leadership position and asked questions, his career was rocked and devastated. And still, he goes through the process, does what he's told to do, did exactly what my clients are being told to do, wins relief, and then it's overturned by a bureaucrat.
Wow. That is a very important signal that they want to send out, that the bureaucracy wants to send out, that if you do this, especially at a high level, if you try to stand up and go against what the machine tells you, we're going to make sure that your life is ruined till the very end. Even when you have the victory, watch out, we're going to come and get you, because that's what that sort of bureaucratic mind state cannot deal with somebody like a hero, a true hero that will go against what the orders are when they are truly unlawful orders. Is there anything that can be done to help this individual? Is there any other process left for him, or is that the end of the road at this point?
I mean, he was forced to retire early. We can seek reconsideration. We're really contemplating, of course, a federal lawsuit. There are some options there. It's just, in many respects, it's deeply disappointing because this was a great opportunity for the Air Force to send the opposite signal of what you're talking about, and they fumbled at the finish line. So that's what's been very, very difficult. But there's tremendous support in Congress. There's some great representatives. Eli Crane and others have been awesome on this, and I hope that support will continue to swell. But unfortunately, General Sage is going to have to decide whether he wants to invest the time and resources into federal litigation to make this right.
Davis, we're just about out of time here. We opened up the show today with a clip of an interview of you in a children's health defense movie, Duty to Disobey, that is going to be coming out in June of this year. We're trying to figure out where the premiere is going to be. I hope you make sure in June to join us when that premiere does happen. We don't have an exact date yet, but early June it will be happening. I hope to watch the film for the first time right next to you, if that's possible. Hopefully it will be.
That would be amazing. That's such an important project.
Excellent. And thank you for being a part of it. Davis, thank you so much for joining us here and coming on the show. I'm sure we're going to have you back again soon to give us more updates on this. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. God bless.
Always learn so much from Davis. Always shocks me. He always gets me these little kernels and pieces of information that I just like, wait, can you say that again? Like, what just happened? Don't go anywhere. Everybody stick around because now we have Miriam Eckenfels and our EMR team coming up right now.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another EMR and Wireless segment. My name is Miriam Eckenfels, and I am the director of CHD's EMR and Wireless program. I am super excited about today's guests and the conversation that we're going to have. In a little bit, we will be speaking to Diego Hidalgo. He's the founder of the OFF movement that calls for reclaiming human control over technology. And that's really going to be the center of today's conversation. So why is this conversation about the human relationship to technology so important? We will explore that with our first guest, Pandava. He's a singer-songwriter who made a super impactful music video that I want to share with all of you, and that's going to kick off our conversation today. So let's watch the video.
Makes faces yearn, my smartphone constant by my side. A bond that time cannot divide. Oh, beautiful smartphone, my heart is true. How much I love and care for you. Your sleek embrace, your endless light, you guide me through both day and night. My lifeline, clock and memory store, a portal to a million doors. Oh, beautiful smartphone, ever in view. How much I love and care for you. You hold my secrets, track my days. You craft my world in countless ways. With every swipe and soft caress, you bind me closer, I confess. Oh, beautiful smartphone, your grip I knew. How much I love and care for you. No God can claim such loyalty. You own my time, my energy. 1 hour a week I turn away, but you remind me not to stray. Oh, beautiful smartphone, always new. How much I love and care for you. Now everyone's a multi-lens pro, recording life's events on show. A sea of screens held high in flight blocks every view with glowing light. Oh, beautiful smartphone, the crowd's debut. How much I love and care for you. You shape my thoughts, you guide my hand. A mother's leash, a stern command. In trials of life, your truth prevails. For every moment, your memory sails. Oh, beautiful smartphone, binding like glue. How much I love and care for you. But with your love, the cost arise. My lowered head, my tired eyes. Distracted steps, a fate unkind. Accidents born of a wandering mind. Oh, beautiful smartphone, shadows accrue. How much I love and care for you. You grasp my children young and free with radiation, subtle plea. Addiction spread if one can see. You'll never bind the soul that's free. Oh, beautiful smartphone, dreams askew. How much I love and care for you. The doctor's profit, the damage grows with health undone by unseen foes. Cancers bloom, minds wear and tear, while towers rise without a care. Oh, beautiful smartphone, toxic in hue. How much I love and care for you. The bees and birds, the earth and sky suffer beneath your rising tide. With 5G's reach, the balance breaks. Too late, we'll see the toll it takes. Oh, beautiful smartphone, life bids adieu. How much I love and care for you. Prabhupada warned of wealth so vast, a fleeting dream of plastic and glass. Yet truth is clear if one can see. You'll never bind the soul that's free. Oh, beautiful smartphone, My love is through. How much I loved and cared for you.
Wow. I mean, this video is so impactful and it makes me think and feel so many things. So let's welcome Panda Does, who made this song. Welcome, Panda.
At CHD.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this song and create this video about smartphones and wireless exposure.
Well, Mike Adams, he's with BrightEon.com, and he's a friend of CHD. So he has gotten into producing his own song videos and about the problems in the world that he sees. And I was inspired by that, that anybody could do that, because in the past you would have to have $100,000 to rent a studio to get all the recordings done, and you need some 3D animators. But now for a couple or $300, you can produce your own music videos.
Well, that's amazing. But why did you choose smartphones as a topic? What motivated you to sort of like look at this particular issue through a critical lens?
Well, through the Defender, I've watched a lot of videos and information from CHD about problems with EMF and wireless pollution, and also what Robert Kennedy is currently doing now. They're going after this issue. So for the past few years, I've been researching with all the professionals on the internet, taking their seminars and reading their papers, like Arthur Furstenberg or Nick Penault, Lloyd Burrell, and Josh Defsole. There's so many that are teaching and sharing the dangers of EMF and wireless technology. So I'm pretty well versed on it, but I can't really speak on it like them. But what I've seen is, for decades, a silent plague has been woven into the fabric of our lives, emanating from the cell phones that are in our pockets, the Wi-Fi that's in our homes, and the cell towers that dot the horizon. The NIH spent 10 years and $30 million of taxpayers' money researching how cell phone radiation affects our bodies and finding that DNA gets damaged, heart damage, and other serious health risks. But the NIH quietly ended this study, even though we're exposed to over 600% more EMFs in our homes today than we were 10 years ago. And there's been no more follow-ups, updates, or answers from NIH.
Right, right. And it's really interesting what you said too, because I feel like there's so much information out there. There's so many great people who are sharing the information, that are sharing the science, that are sharing possible solutions. But I do think that this song and the video, you know, it's a different medium and it can reach people at a different level. It is thought-provoking in its own right, and I'm so grateful you did it. What is the one thing that you want people to take away, or maybe it's a couple of things, that you want people to take away when they watch your video and listen to your song?
Well, it comes in sweetly to people. They think that I love smartphones and they love their smartphones, that no one wants to be without them. But actually, most of the video is pointing out the problems that it can occur in our lives. Like there's over 3,000 deaths every year from people distracted driving, and 400,000 injuries from car crashes, and 600 non-occupants are texting while driving and using their smartphone. So these distracted drivers cause 23% of all car accidents in America. What to say of the rest of the world?
Wow. Wow, that's a great perspective. Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I'm very grateful you made the video. We are going to post a link in the show notes. I encourage our viewers to share it and to use it as a conversation starter. As you said, it starts off very sweet because in the end of the day, there is this scenario where we are all in love on one level or addicted to on another level to our smartphones. And it is really important that, that the line that you use that, it never captures a soul that's free. And I think that is a really powerful message. And I'm very grateful for you for making the video, but also for joining us today and sharing it with us. Thank you very much, Pandava.
Well, thank you, Miriam. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And now I would like to welcome Diego Hidalgo, who is a thinker, author, and entrepreneur who has spent over 2 decades examining humanity's relationship with digital technology. From pioneering early research on Facebook's social impact at Cambridge to promoting what we're going to be talking about now, Off, a movement, a global initiative backed by hundreds of prominent figures that calls for reclaiming human control over technology. Diego, welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much for your invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to launch Off February, or maybe take a step back and tell us a little more about the Off movement and then sort of like what you're promoting now, the Off February, and what problem you are trying to bring to the forefront.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. No, I mean, as you pointed out, I've been interested myself in the impact of digital technologies on human beings, on the society, for about 25 years. When people would ask me when I was 16 or 17 years old what I wanted to do in life, I would generally say write books about the way technology impacts us and create some organization one day that would promote a broad reflection on the way it's impacting us. And today I'm very lucky to be doing mostly exactly what I wished to be doing when I was a teenager. Back then, so about over 25 years ago, I was first struck by how my own dad, as I was a teenager, started being totally absorbed in his emails. And, it was still when they were back inside a computer, so they wouldn't penetrate yet like every corner of our lives. And still, I observed that it would really sort of cannibalize the time that we would spend together without any digital interference, and the time we would be just talking, playing. So I really started asking myself the question, are these emerging technologies going to unite us and enrich the social fabric, or rather the opposite? And that was really the sort of question I said to myself. Unfortunately now, especially since technology has gone mobile and is everywhere on our smartphones, I think the answer empirically is quite clear today. Technology in the past 15 years has harmed the social fabric. It's made us globally feel lonelier. Of course, there's ways to escape this. I was going to just thank Pandava for the video we saw earlier. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still using this, so I can't say I'm in love with my smartphone. And some people ask me, "Oh, but wait, is that your only phone?" And so I say, "No, I've got a second one here." But basically, I don't have a smartphone, and it's possible to find ways to sort of escape this sort of hyper connection that penetrates in every facet of our lives on our own. But we think it's much more powerful to actually do this together, to rethink together the role that technology is playing in our own lives as individuals and as a society. And that's what the idea behind the Off Manifesto that we launched a couple of years ago. And it's a manifesto that's been signed by over 500 personalities and experts worldwide, and which sends a sort of alerts to the population, to authorities about the critical point we're reaching in our relationship to technology, and invites us to retake control over technology because it's increasingly designed and conceived and deployed to exploit our vulnerabilities. I think the video we saw earlier has made this clear. There's many other ways in which it does, and it's really an invitation to retake control over technology so that it's at our service and not the opposite. That's really the spirit of the OFF manifesto and of the OFF movement that's launched off February, that I hope I can tell you a bit more about in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that. I find it so interesting because I think it really lies at the core of everything that we are also trying to do in the program, right? I mean, the radiation is one thing, but being exposed to it for, I mean, the graphics that we showed of like, I mean, an average of 5 hours a day, and it sort of like impacts every facet of everybody's life. It distracts us from, like Pandava mentioned, from driving. It distracts us from our children. It distracts us from being present in the moment that we actually are, yet we always have this impression of being connected to something else, and it leads to a lot of societal challenges, like you mentioned, right? We feel more disconnected, more depressed, more anxious than we have ever as a human society, and this rethinking of how we interact with technology is a big part that we're also hoping to promote as we think through the impacts that not just the radiation, but the content that is on these screens and the algorithms, the way they are designed to hook you, to make you addicted, really bring with it. So Diego, you mentioned off February, we're already in February, you launched it. We're excited. So tell us about it. What does it mean? How can people join? What do they have to do? And what are some of the things that they get to explore if they participate in off February?
Yeah, of course. So, basically our action at the OFF movement is really about taking this reflection to action, because unfortunately with the problems we're talking about today, people are more and more conscious of that. And still we see how those problems actually get worse, even though we're more conscious. So it's a bit of a paradox. And Off February is an answer to that. And it's based on a challenge that invites you to delete your social media apps for 28 days. So we're not telling people to stop completely using social media, because they can still access them through a web browser. But we want to kill the bridge to an unintentional, impulsive use of these platforms that have a huge cost in our lives. And I think one of the first costs is actually a cost of opportunity. It's, depending on the country, depending on the age range, we're spending in the 50, 60 hours a month on those platforms. And we also see that people feel they lack more time than they used to 15 years ago, which is not a big surprise if you think that all these time's been sort of stolen away from them. And Off February is first and foremost an invitation to reinvest those dozens of hours of our time in things that are more meaningful to us, that are much better correlated to our well-being, to our happiness, such as spending time together as families, with friends, etc., without so many interruptions and digital interference. Secondly, physical activity, walking around, playing sports, etc. Thirdly, reading, and just anything that's got to do with culture in general. And fourth, sleep and just rest in general. In most countries, we see that actually sleep has been really much affected, and people sleep worse today than 15, 20 years ago. And again, for all these sort of verticals I've mentioned, we've got evidence that they're directly connected and caused by that hyperconnection and that time we spend behind a screen, generally scrolling.
That's fascinating. I want to encourage people to actually do that. And if you feel like you cannot do it for a whole month, try a week. Because I did this, I think 2 years ago or last year. I did sort of like a week-long social media fast. And I've never been like, someone who was excessively on social media. But I noticed just myself checking it over and over again. There was like this repetitive cycle of you just... When you had a minute to wait, right, what would you do? You would grab your phone and you would check your social media, or you would check your email. And so I made a very conscious effort. I deleted the apps, like you said, and I just for a week, and it was enough to break this cycle, this addiction cycle. To now, I have to remind myself, I haven't checked my social media today. I'm curious what So it doesn't take long for the physical sort of like repetitive behavior and addiction to go away. And I think it's really important that people give this a try, because the algorithm is designed to do the exact opposite, right? It's designed to hook you more, and it's designed to engage you more.
Absolutely. And, there's studies. I mean, this is the first of like global scale. We counted yesterday, there's 42 countries, participants in 42 countries already that have signed up. So by the way, you're actually invited to, participate, but you can also sign up for Off February through our website, OFFM.org. And then you'll have the opportunity to participate in the impact study that we have that will, I hope, help us understand better the impact of such a sort of like digital fast or partial selective digital fast. And there's studies that have been conducted, of course, at a smaller scale, that show that generally the first 3-4 days, especially for people who are the most addicted, tend to be quite hard because they just always go back. They feel something's missing, as in any other sort of addictive behavior. However, after 1 or 2 weeks, generally, the positive impact on people's well-being, on their mental health, and on their attention capacity is proved to really, improve massively for a great majority of participants. Last year, a study was published by Oxford University in which they showed that 91% of people turning off the internet on their smartphone for 14 days had felt a positive impact in one of those 3 fields at least.
Yeah, what do you think? Tell us a little bit more about these impacts. What do you think is the first thing that people are going to notice? Like, let's say, okay, they delete their non-essential apps. They're going for a couple of days. You said it might be hard in the beginning, right? Because you have to fill this time. But then what are the effects that they're most likely to experience first?
So as we said, after those 3-4 days of maybe discomfort, I think the first thing they will notice is just how much more time they have, and not just time in a quantitative way, but also qualitative way, because it's not the same thing, to spend time with your kids or with a friend, just being constantly interrupted and having your mind half with your kids and half just somewhere else. And even if you're not scrolling at the moment, if you have the expectation to maybe just checking your social media in 30 seconds, you've got this FOMO, this fear of missing out that's still sort of following you constantly. So I think the first thing they will feel is just this, increased peace of mind and just this time that they will be able to devote to just, other things. And our hope, of course, is that, this challenge lasts for 28 days. But there's other experiments that have been made in other fields in which give us some hope that people afterwards, of course, will not just return to how they were exactly before February. So our hope is that maybe some of them reinstall some apps or just or none, but at least that they change the way they relate to these platforms and set some barriers between those platforms. Social media platforms and themselves, so that they can, if anything, use them more intentionally.
Right, and I love that. I think it really hits at the heart of, of what's also important for parents to know as their children engage with this technology. So how does, in your opinion, a healthier relationship with technology look like? And what should parents focus on, particularly when it comes to our children?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and if you allow me, there's one important point about Off February is that it actually targets more adults than children or teenagers, and that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, because we think that we talk a lot about the impact of those platforms on teenagers, their mental health, etc., and we're right to do so because they're probably those who've been suffering the most. If you look at the increasing depressions and in general, sort of the decrease of well-being of the society, like clearly young people have been most affected. However, first of all, unfortunately, when they reach 18 or like 21, it's not that like they're actually well again. It seems, unfortunately, that Gen Z is going to like carry that negative impact for a long time. Secondly, that problem is mainly a problem that we adults, so to speak, that society has put in the hands of teenagers. It's not like, arisen from teenagers themselves. And we think that, adults should be sort of reference for minors in general and should show the example. And right now, sometimes you've got, like parents scrolling on their Instagram, telling their teenagers to stop being on TikTok, but I think their credibility is affected by that. So that was the first point. Then, in general, I think it's really important to delay as much as possible the age you give a smartphone to your kids. Again, there's abundant research that shows that it's probably the best measure. It's probably the best present you can make them, and that they will be very grateful for in a few years. There's a study, for example, from an institute called Sapien Labs that showed that mental health between 18 and 24, so once people reach adulthood, is very much correlated to the age they receive their first smartphone. So like kids who got it with 7 years old are infinitely more affected by depressions and anxiety, for example, once they reach adulthood than those who got them with 16 or 18. So if you do a cost benefit analysis of giving your kid a smartphone earlier, the costs are tremendous and the benefits honestly are not that high. So just, maybe give them a flip phone or like a phone, a dumb phone like mine, but not a smartphone, because it's, the sort of best way to lose control over the contents they're going to be on, and just these addictive algorithms that you mentioned, Miriam, a moment ago. And in general, to finish, I think it's, very important to set barriers between us and technology. So it doesn't mean stop using it completely. I'm, by the way, a tech entrepreneur myself by origin. I think you can build great models with technology that are not designed to sort of exploit our vulnerabilities, weaknesses. But I do think that it's important to set those barriers so that we really use technology without being used by it. So it can be spatial barriers. I think it's very important that smartphones, for example, don't access the bedroom, that they sort of remain in sort of common areas of your house. Maybe have a box at the entrance of your house in which people drop their smartphones, and when they want to use them, they really intentionally take it and then put them back when their use has finished and their objective is attained. Let's all of us think of these like time and space barriers that we can set, such as, of course, like no smartphones at the dinner table, so that we can just talk without any interference.
Right. Well, Diego, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think it's hugely important what you do. I think this is the conversation we should have now as parents, as people in a shared space in society with our friends. I'm very, very grateful for all you do, for coming on and sharing it with us. I want to encourage everyone to sign on for the Off February Challenge. offm.org is the link. And, Diego has shared tremendous graphics and statistics and research, and it's really, really worth paying attention to. So, Diego, thank you very much for coming.
If you allow me, apart from thanking you for receiving me, I would also like to thank our 55 partner organizations in the world. I think many of them in the US are actually friends of CHD. And without them, honestly, the impact we're having wouldn't be possible. So thank you so much to our partners such as Safe Tech International, Americans for Responsible Technology, and others, such as, also to finish, Smartphone Free Childhood US, and others who are really making great efforts to promote Off February.
Thank you so much, Diego. And for everyone, thank you for joining us today. And please stay tuned now for the People's Study Story of the Day.
Okay. All right, we're live now. So can you tell us your name?
My name is April.
April, and how many children do you have?
I have 10.
10, okay. And the child, one of your children, we're going to talk about, where was he in the line?
He was number 4,
Number
and
4.
His name was Paul.
Paul, okay. So let's talk about Paul. and describe to us what happened with the vaccine history and then the medication.
Okay, he was a normal, healthy baby, very happy and energetic, and after his 18-month-old vaccines, he started having a lot of health issues and was getting kind of sickly and losing weight, and I didn't know what was going on. And then he began to have seizures. Started off kind of slow at first. His neurologist didn't know what had triggered them. And then he got to the point as a toddler where he was having hundreds of seizures a day, and they couldn't treat it. They were talking about doing an operation on his brain where they would separate the brain in half so the seizures would maybe stop. But they ended up finding some good medication that he was able to be on that slowed the seizures. And by the time he was 5, we were able to control them so much better. He only had 2 or 3 a week at that point. And so I homeschooled him. We spent time together. He was learning delayed because of the epilepsy.
Did you continue to vaccinate him?
No. I was at that time where I started to suspect that maybe the vaccines had triggered his epilepsy. The neurologist talked to me about it a little bit and recommended that we hold his vaccines and see what happened. And I'm a nurse, so I didn't want to really believe that it was his vaccines at first, so I wasn't sure.
What kind of a nurse were you?
LB nurse. So.
I don't know what LB means.
I'm sorry, labor and delivery.
Labor and delivery, okay.
Yes.
Did you ever give vaccinations to people yourself?
No, I didn't, that's not true. I would give newborn vaccines sometimes in the newborn nursery when I first was working, so, yeah.
All right, so back to Paul.
Okay, so we moved to the country when he was about 5, and we thought maybe there were some environmental triggers too for his epilepsy. We weren't sure what was going on. But we continued to homeschool him, and he was pretty highly functioning even with his epilepsy. We tried to take him off the medications many times to wean him down and get him off, but immediately the epilepsy would just flare up and get really bad again.
Were they full-blown seizures?
Yes, well actually full-blown, and then all sorts of other kinds, drop seizures and focal seizures, just he had all the kinds. Yeah. But I was able to homeschool him, and he was learning, doing well, loved his brothers and sisters, loved life. He loved to fish and hunt and do all sorts of things that a teenage boy would do. And then when he was 18, he unexpectedly took his own life. And we really believe it was a result of the epilepsy medications. They have suicidal ideations as some of their main side effect. But we weren't able to take him off of those. He had to be on those if he wanted to be able to function.
Did you have any idea that he was in this state of mind before he took his life?
No.
It's a terrible
He was
shock.
happy and joyful and just fun-loving kid, loved his family. It was a shock. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Terrible shock.
Yeah.
And what about your other children? Did you, at any point, do you have any unvaccinated children?
Yes, my youngest 4 are unvaccinated completely. They've been very healthy. No asthma, allergies, eczema, ear infections like my older kids all struggled with. So I believe very firmly now that those vaccines cause side effects that we have to deal with if we give them. And so we've just not vaccinated our younger ones at all. And those 4 are still living at home, and they're very healthy and doing well.
It must have affected them deeply.
Yes, affected all the kids deeply. The whole family really taught us to cling to the Lord and to be one and close together, and just trust the Lord for everything. We will always have a special love for people with special needs, because he was around his brothers and sisters the whole time growing up, and they learned how to be gentle and kind and loving to him. So God's using it to be a blessing in the long run.
And they understand the dangers of vaccinations and medication.
I think they're learning. They have their own children now, so they will have to just make decisions for themselves about what they think about it. But they've heard a lot from me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's tragic. what happened to Paul. And we would like to put a picture of him in our memorial here.
I didn't think to bring one today, so could I send it?
Yes,
yeah,
you can
okay.
send it.
Okay.
And anything else you want to add to this story?
Just that his dad would really have loved to be here today. He's an emergency room nurse, so he couldn't come, but he wanted to say that he was glad that we were telling Paul's story.
Yeah, thank you for telling Paul's story. It's absolutely tragic, but we won't forget him.
Thank you.
Okay.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.